Volcanic activity bursts sulfur dioxide out into the atmosphere, and volcanic activity provides cooling. So you go back, you see here Mount Pinatubo. That was a cold year. Now I don't know where that Icelandic volcano that disrupted travel to Europe. Don't ask me to pronounce it. Even if I had it in front of me, I couldn't pronounce it. But that could have been in this 2007, 2008 period. I think that this SO2 is a heat absorber, just like CO2, but the total sulfur dioxide is an indication of how much volcanic activity there was. So if you compare the volcanic emissions of SO2 for any given year versus any other given year, I think you'll get an idea of how much cooling or warming effect there will be. I think the amount of CO2, if Catherine were here, she'd tell us all that water water vapor is the most energy absorbing gas in the atmosphere.
And it's got a higher concentration than CO2.
Yes, yes. But it feeds CO2 and SO2, methane, or methane for the Brits amongst us, have higher global warming potential, greenhouse gas potential, but the concentrations are lower than the water. So we'll see how much. I don't have any slides in here to show how much CO2 has been generated this year. Sunspots. In the late 1990s, there were a lot. You'd think that sunspots would sort of screen the energy from the Earth, but instead they actually enhance the energy coming, lower number of them, you get a lower energy flux. So you've got about 50 to 150 per day versus a lot more back then. So you got less energy coming to the Earth, and hence that line should not be as, the 1990 to 2000 period should have a higher slope than it does now. And you can kind of see that it did. So on this slide, you got 1990 over here and 2000 over here. Kind of there's an upward trend, and it's kind of bounced around a lot in the last decade, but various places, we keep hearing that various places have had the hottest X month on record, and I can't argue with that. Here's the widget for sunspots. Gives you an idea of the global temperature anomaly and the sunspot number for that day, the concentration in the atmosphere. There's a group that calls for that number to be 350 ppm. I'm afraid they missed their target. So what's happening with carbon here in Australia? The new government pledged to repeal the carbon tax, but as far as I understand, it's up to Parliament. I don't think the Prime Minister can do it all by himself.
The governing party controls the lower house, but it doesn't control the Senate. So it needs to get the support of the minor parties in the Senate.
Okay, and are they likely to do that?
It's more likely than not.
Not until June next year.
Okay. But this is what I found had happened with the carbon tax. Higher electricity rates, lower GDP growth. The government had turned over quite a bit and didn't reduce the carbon emissions at all. That's what the data says. But on the other hand, the US EPA proposed power plant rules a few days ago, and they brought somebody, a woman out to announce the new rules about the cabin emissions. And she spelled it. I heard this report on the radio. It was spelled C-A-R-B-O-N. So she's from Boston. She admitted it. And they're going to allow 1,100 pounds of CO2 per megawatt hour of electricity produced. Coal is currently running about 2,000 pounds of CO2. So unless they find a way to do carbon capture and sequestration, they're not going to be able to get there with coal. With natural gas, you're at about 1,000. So this 1,100 limit would be quite easy to accomplish with natural gas. Now this is not yet affecting existing power plants burning coal. And I'm not saying it's going to, and I'm not saying it's not going to, but this is where we're at. Other environmental issues involving money. I found this sustainability case study at major brewer, Miller Coors. They have set a goal of zero waste to landfill. They've achieved it at 4 breweries. They've improved their efficiency of trucking routes. Who'd have thought that double-siding printing would save 400,000 sheets of paper? And they've asked people to make sure they need to print something before they print it. They've had a 55% weight reduction of waste to landfill versus 2008. And this kind of thing, a sustainability report, is something that a lot of companies are doing now. And they're publishing them online, and I'll point them out either in the in the columns for Perlite Today or venues such as this, if they become appropriate.
Ken,
Yeah.
how are they achieving the zero landfill at 4 breweries if they were presumably using diatomaceous earth?
I'm not sure what they're calling waste.
Oh. Okay.
Even if they were to use perlite or cellulose. Well, if they were to use cellulose, then they could just burn the stuff to provide power within the brewery.
But that's not gonna be.
They're transferring the waste to one of their other breweries first,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
taking it to the
Yeah.
landfill.
There you go.
Beer itself is a waste.
But this one's actually unbelievable. For every windshield, you're familiar with Tesla, the electric sports car producing,
You became alternate,
anyways, Tesla
$70,000.
was getting windshields. Each windshield was packaged in a cardboard box. And plus various other parts that were coming in cardboard, created 317 tons per month of waste cardboard that they had to deal with one way or another. So they went to this, a company that you'll see on the next slide, and said, what do we do? And the company engineered a rack for them. The rack would hold 10 or so windshields. They bring in all the racks. They use all the racks, all the windshields on one rack. They return the empty rack to the windshield provider and start on the next rack. So they eliminated all the cardboard. Now this other company, Veritable Vegetable, their warehouse people had to pelletize 2 boxes of carrots, 4 boxes of tomatoes, 3 boxes of bell peppers, and 5 boxes of potatoes if they were sending to a market, or another mix if they were sending stuff to a pizza restaurant. And so each pallet was completely different. So they were wrapping pallets with stretch wrap, and they were getting wear and tear on the employees' knees and backs, and using $40,000 per year of this stretch wrap. So they benefited from this reusable packaging